Welcome to the Popish Plot. I'm Nate.
I'm Jessica.
And I'm Mike.
Today is January 28th, and it's Saintly Sunday. Today's plot is going to be St. Thomas Aquinas. Today would be his feast day if it wasn't for the fact that it's on a Sunday.
Now, his feast day was originally on March 7th, but was moved because that date is almost always during Lent.
He must have a better PR guy than St. Patrick.
Yeah.
Well, the Irish are just stubborn. St. Thomas Aquinas is the patron of a whole bucket load of things, including academics,
Against storms.
Against lightning.
apologists,
Booksellers.
Catholic academies.
schools,
Universities.
Learning.
pencil makers,
Philosophers.
Publishers.
scholars,
Students.
Theologians.
all that and more.
Yes, St. Thomas Aquinas was all that and a bag of chips.
Mostly because he ate all the chips.
No, he ate all the chips.
He's a doctor of the church, often remembered fondly as the angelic doctor.
Now, I've always been a little confused. I hear the term doctor of the church, but what exactly does that mean?
Jessica?
Well, there are 3 conditions required to be a doctor of the church.
Okay.
Eminent learning, meaning you have to write great theological things. It's got to be helpful and uplifting. A high degree of sanctity.
Okay.
So you can't be one of those people who was martyred at the last minute with the deathbed conversion type thing and get in.
All right, yeah.
And the church has to officially proclaim it.
So there's still a chance for me.
You need to get writing.
And,
I can write.
and the personal sanctity.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got to be pretty high. I mean, there's a lot of people who wrote stuff that are not doctors of the church.
Look. I can get better. I can do this.
Well, from this point, there is basically nowhere to go but up, so yes. St. Thomas wrote many works, including the Summa Theologica, all of theology.
The Summa contra Gentiles, also known as Liber de Veritate Catholicae Fide Errores Contra Errores Infidelium, or the book on the truth of the Catholic faith against the errors of the unbelievers.
And many, many more works. Up to 100, it depends on, there are some works that they're not sure for sure that it was him. And some of them, in fact, a lot of them, like the Summas, are multiple books long.
So not really so much a book as a volume or a collected work.
Well, there are some smaller letters and like some, commentaries on different books of the Bible that are
Right, but
normal length. But
I'm just saying the Summa isn't really so much a book as
No.
it is a collected work.
It's its own encyclopedia.
Well, it's all of theology.
It is, yeah, fair enough. Now, many hagiographies, or which is a fancy term for stories of the saints, are usually either X-saint was a great and fantastic person, they were always wonderful, and of course they would end up being a saint, or they are X-saint was a horrible, terrible person until the time came that he met God and converted, and now all of a sudden he's a fantastic saintly individual. Which is why servant of God Dorothy Day is noted as having said, "Don't call me a saint, I don't want to be dismissed that easily." And when they call you a saint, it means basically that you are not to be taken seriously.
Attentive viewers may remember that from November. We'll put a link somewhere.
Probably. Over this way, I think.
Over here, yeah.
And fellow doctor of the church, St. Teresa of Avila, is quoted as saying, "From silly devotions and from sour-faced saints, good Lord, deliver us." So, we're not going to talk about all the great and saintly things he did.
You can go look that up on your own.
Yes. But the silly, embarrassing, and other relatable to day-to-day human things that the saint did, because everyone's called to be a saint, and saints are people too. Now, I do want to note, we aren't going to discuss anything that he did that is entirely stupid, due to the fact that they had no idea how science worked back then, and so he had ideas that we'd look at and go, that's just ridiculous.
Not so much stupid as it is ignorant.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't know any
They
better.
didn't know any better.
No, we're just doing the things that, day-to-day, dumb...
The silly stuff.
Yes.
For example, when he was at university, the future St. Thomas was nicknamed the Dumb Ox, because he was fairly quiet, incredibly fat, and slow.
Yeah, if they had a football team, he'd probably be, very popular as a linebacker or something.
Yeah. There was a joke that they had to cut a half circle in the dining room table because he couldn't fit close enough to it. Benedictines.
His family wanted him to be a Benedictine, but he wanted to be a Dominican. So they did what any reasonable person would do. They kidnapped him and locked him in the family castle.
Because
Yep.
people had castles back then.
His brothers thought that maybe they could cheer him up by sending him a prostitute.
I think they're trying to stop him from, following through on his vows.
Oh, fair enough. That one might work as well. But in either case, he decided that the appropriate response was to chase her out of his room with either a flaming stick that he pulled directly out of the fire or a red-hot fire poker because, well, that'll
It's the closest thing at hand.
It's the next best thing to a burning stick.
It depends on the version of the story.
Yeah.
His sister had died from a lightning during a storm, and so as a small kid, he would stick his head in the tabernacle of his family's chapel during storms. Because, again, you have a castle. Of course you have a family chapel. As an adult, there's a story that he once stuck his head into the tabernacle to have a talk with Jesus, and it got stuck. After that, he's known for laying his head against the tabernacle.
So
let it not be said that St. Thomas Aquinas was not capable of learning from his mistakes.
Yes. I remember hearing you tell me something about that in your experiences at church.
Well, both me and Mike are what our church calls mass captains, which are someone who sets up for an individual mass. So they're not the sacristan who's in charge of all the materials for masses, just one mass. And one of the jobs we have to do is we have to look in the tabernacle and see how many hosts there are so we know what we need to set out for that mass. And the first few times I did the job, all I could think of was, I don't want my head stuck in the tabernacle, like St. Thomas Aquinas. Please, Lord, don't let my head get stuck in the tabernacle like St. Thomas Aquinas.
See?
You don't even have to stick your head in to do this. It's just a peek in, but immediately.
The saints are not just models for us to follow, but occasionally models of behavior to avoid.
Yes. Don't stick your head in to look.
Once, when St. Thomas was told to visit the court of the King of France, Louis IX, Saint Louis, and he disliked being pulled away from his studies for any reason, when he and his group got to a hill where they could oversee all of Paris, someone else said, "How grand it must be to own all of this!" And St. Thomas only muttered, "I would rather have that Chrysostom manuscript I just can't get a hold of."
At the same visit, during a courtly banquet, he slammed his large fist. He was very fat, so it's probably a really big, ham-fisted man. Slammed it on the table, and apropos of nothing that was going on at the time, shouted out, "That'll settle the Manichees."
Which is not done at a French court.
No.
Even if you have a saintly king, that is just really bad manners.
And for those of you who don't get the joke, unfortunately, we don't have the time here to really get into it enough to explain it, but just understand, it's hilarious.
I can't wait for the future episode. Welcome to the Popish plot. That will settle the Manichees. When he wasn't reading or writing, St. Thomas was known to pace around the cloister. If someone stopped him to talk, he would be polite, but then afterwards, he would pick up the pace as if he was making up for lost time.
He never actually got done with the Summa Theologica, because one, it's all of theology. How is one person going to do all that? And two, when he was, he must have been fairly far along in, because it's like 3-4 books long. He had a vision. And afterwards, he determined that everything he'd written, all these great, deep things, was essentially straw compared to the truth. And so, according to some stories, he even tried to burn the Summa, and it was saved by someone else picking it out of the fireplace, because, again, it takes a lot to burn that many pages. They're probably just getting a little seared on the edges by the time he picked them all out.
So, being a great and holy man of great learning and much writing, he also has many great quotes.
Yes, one of my favorites is that sorrow can be alleviated by a good sleep, a bath, and a glass of wine.
Truly a wise man. Mm-hmm. Beware the person of one book. So we should be widely read.
Yes.
And one to remember in summer, all the efforts of the human mind cannot exhaust the existence of a single fly.
Not everything that is more difficult is more meritorious.
Contrary to most things I was told as a child.
They were just trying to get you to do work.
Yeah.
Drink to the point of hilarity. I didn't know this was a Fermentation Friday.
That's later on this week.
Yeah.
And to pretend angels do not exist because they are invisible is to believe we never sleep because we don't see ourselves sleeping.
So remember, do us all a favor and hit the subscribe button. Show us that you enjoy the show and you want to see more of it. Ring the bell next to it so that way you can be notified when those new episodes come out. And go down below into the comments section and share with us your favorite unexpected or even unexpected saint quote. Perhaps if we find something that we really enjoy, we'll have an opportunity later on to share them with you folks.
And, following the advice of St. Thomas, feel free, when commenting, to drink to the point of hilarity.
But not beyond that.
Nope. Once things start getting funny, you've hit the line.
Yep.
So until next time,
Live your faith.
Love your faith.
Share that love.